Hello and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. In my last video, I showed you my 3 favorite tarp configurations for setting up camp on the ground. Today I want to share with you my 3 favorite ways to fly my tarp when I'm hammock camping. Honestly, I much prefer hammock camping over camping on the ground any day, and so I'm excited to share with you these 3 configurations that have served me well for years. There's nothing about this that's super innovative or new, but these are just the ways that I like to set things up when I'm hammock camping. So I hope you'll enjoy this. Let's get started right now. To demonstrate these different tarp and hammock setups today, I'll be using my Hammock Gear Zippered bug net, my DD Hammock's Superlight Tarp, and the Hidden Woodsman coffee bag is my dedicated stake bag, which has my stakes, my guy lines, my ridge lines, and any accessories that I need in setting up any type of shelter. For my hammock straps today, I'll simply be using once again a piece of mule tape. Whenever I put this up, I just have a bowline knot tied in one side of the line, and I'll simply come around my tree, and with this hammock I like to hang it about my head height. Simply run this back through and I have my first attachment point. This will be my second attachment point. Once again, head height to myself. And once again, I'll be using a simple marlin spike hitch with a toggle to attach my whoopie sling to the mule tape. And to make that marlin spike hitch, we simply take a bite in the line, which gives us a loop. Fold the loop up the line. That's the key, is fold up, insert your toggle, and dress it up. And that's our first attachment point. And once again, on the opposite side, we take a bite, fold up the line, insert the toggle, and we're in business. So what you're looking at here are my whoopie slings that came with my Hammock Gear Zippered bug net hammock. And whoopie slings in general are just awesome because they're made out of ultra light, ultra strong cordage. They're made out of Dyneema, and these have over 1,000 pounds of breaking strength. So my hammock's going to give way long before these straps do. But these things are the diameter roughly of like 550 paracord. They weigh nothing. They're like featherweight, and they take up very little to no space, extra space in your pack. And again, the beauty of them is they give you full adjustment of your hammock. So this is the accessory that I'll use to attach the hammock to the tree straps that we just installed. So the way whoopie slings are made is they just simply have a large loop at one end, which goes over your toggle for a quick attachment to your tree strap. It also allows for a quick takedown when you want to break camp. So just that quick, I connect in or disconnect. Just simply throw the loop over the toggle and you're ready to go to the next step. So I have to be honest that the first time I saw this system, I was a little skeptical because upon first glance, it looks like you're actually being supported by this toggle. But in reality, what you have is 1,800 pound breaking strength for the mule tape and over 1,000 pound breaking strength for this Dyneema. And what's really happening is the toggle is simply creating a leverage point so that these two can bind together. If you look at it, the mule tape and the Dyneema are really in line with each other. The toggle's really not supporting much weight at all. It's just creating a point where the Dyneema can bite into the mule tape, and again, that gives you a very steady, very secure attachment point. I've spent many nights in a hammock with this exact system right here. I've never had a problem. So again, it's a great ultralight, simple, and quick way to put your hammock up, and it's time tested and proven to be effective. Now, what we have on this end is just a spliced eyelet right here, and this will give me a perfect attachment point for the carabiner that's permanently attached to my hammock. Now, not that it makes a big difference, but I have 2 different color carabiners here, and always remember that red head. So that's the head end of my hammock. So I'm just going to come in here with that little spliced eyelet that I just showed you and attach that carabiner in. Now I'll just simply run the opposite carabiner out, keeping my hammock off the ground, and connect it with the opposite end. That's it. Now I just need to adjust my hammock. Get this thing up off the ground. And I'll do that with the whoopie slings. Now this will be a little bit difficult to show on camera, but I'm going to do my best in case you're not familiar with what a whoopie sling is. This is basically like a Chinese finger trap. It creates tension when you pull against it. But if you come right here where these two pieces are spliced together, I can pull through to tighten my hammock, Or if I come up here where you see this blue bead and separate that and pull that in, I can create slack in the line. So this is really almost like a tube that when you pull against it, it cinches everything tight. But when you create slack on that tube, it allows the ends to pass through and again, either create slack in the line, lowering my hammock to the ground, or create tension, raising my hammock up. It's a very fast and simple, and one of those systems where you can get the perfect alignment. You don't have to deal with loops every so many inches or every inch, depending on how good your straps are. But with this, I can get the perfect hang every time with just slipping that line. But again, this is going nowhere. Once I put weight on it, that thing locks in. In fact, the more weight you put on it or harder you pull, the tighter this system will bite. So perfect system for a hammock. All right, now that I got my hammock set up, I want to go ahead and sit in it, because normally when you sit in your hammock after hanging it, it has to kind of settle in a little bit, and actually pretty good right now. And notice that when I'm sitting in this, my legs are at roughly a 90-degree angle, so it's comfortable for me as a chair. One thing you'll also notice about this hammock, which I really like, is that it has a structural ridge line. And what that means is, if I don't have this line there, the angle of my hammock hang is based on my tree straps. Right now, it doesn't matter how far apart these trees or how close these trees are, I'm going to get a consistent hang angle, because this creates tension between the two ends of my hammock and again gives me a consistent sag in my hammock. When I first started hammocking, I always wanted my hammock bone tight because I wanted to lay flat. But once I realized that having an arc in the hammock like this, having a little sag, allows you to get down in there and turn sideways and get the perfect flat lay that you want, that was a game changer for me. When I'm putting this thing up in different locations, I want consistency. I know what's comfortable for me. Having this line set right here, the structural ridge line, just means that no matter where I go, my hammock hang will always be the same every time. And that's important. That helps me get better rest, and therefore I enjoy myself in the woods more. So this feels really comfortable. Let's go ahead and get a ridge line up and work on our tarp configuration. So I just have a simple bowline knot. I'm going to toggle that bowline knot off, cinch it back to the tree. Now I'll run this to the other line for my trucker's hitch. So I'll just run my ridge line around my tree. I have an extra long ridge line, which can be both a blessing and a curse. Sometimes having a long ridge line, it gets caught up on everything. Sometimes you need that extra length for your shelter. So I've just created a slip loop, which is the beginning of my trucker's hitch. I'm going to cinch that thing back. I like my ridge line to be ultra tight. And I'll just come up under here, create that security half hitch. And it's good to go, nice and tight. Now on my line, I have little prusik loops, which I've shown before in other tarp videos or setup videos. So we'll go with those to hang our tarp. So once again, the tarp that I'm using today is the DD Superlight Tarp, which is basically the ultralight version of the 3x3 I showed you in the last video. This tarp measures 3 meters by 2.9 meters, so it's roughly a square tarp and basically functions like a square tarp. If I'm going to be doing ground shelter sets like I showed in the last video, then I prefer the heavier material of the regular 3x3. But when I'm going to be flying the tarp over my hammock like I am now, then this is a much better option for me because it packs down so much smaller and because it is that much lighter. So the DD Superlight Tarp, I really enjoy this one. Alright, so I just pull this out, and I prefer an A-frame tarp configuration almost always. I'm not a huge fan of the diamond setup. There's nothing wrong with it, and I've used it. I just kind of like the old A-frame shape. I feel like it gives me better cover with my tarp. Now I can see the center seam. I'm going to throw that up over the ridge line. And having these prusiks pre-installed will make quick work out of pulling tension on this tarp. So I always like to take just a minute to make sure that my tarp is centered over my hammock. Make sure I don't have part of my hammock exposed. And then I'll just simply toggle this off and pull it tight with the prusiks. So I'll just simply insert this prusik through my tarp tie out, slide my toggle in place, have a little notch cut that perfectly fits that bank line. Now I just have to keep the tarp tight and walk down to get the other side done. Now it's really simple to just cinch back on these prusiks, make sure this tarp is nice and tight, and then I have proper coverage over my hammock. That looks really good actually. Very nice. Now we're ready to stake out the other parts. The DD Superlight Tarp comes with guy lines with these plastic dog bones, which while they're not my favorite, they're functional. So I just use these guy lines. It also comes with some lightweight stakes, which are not really the best for my area, so I always use MSR groundhog stakes. But I do utilize the guy lines that came with the tarp, and I just leave them permanently attached to the corners, and that works out well. Alright, so I've gone ahead and staked out all 4 corners to fly this tarp in an A-frame configuration. And I've spent a lot of nights in a hammock over the years, and of all the different configurations I've used, this is by far my favorite and most used configuration. It's very simple, it's time tested and proven. I've spent a lot of nights in rainstorms, and I've been through some windy rainstorms, and with this configuration, for the most part, I've stayed dry. It's very simple to set up. It gives you a good sunshade if that's an issue when you're camping, especially this time of year. And one other thing I like about it is it gives you some privacy. So sometimes if you're in a camp with a lot of people, you want to change clothes. If you have a diamond configuration, it doesn't give you that coverage or that privacy, whereas this does. So for me, number one, top favorite, simple tarp configuration for hammock camping. All right, just to give you a better look at how all this comes together, you can see we have nice coverage on both sides inside there, and you can see we have some nice shade, which is always welcome on a hot day. And just have the guy lines pulled out at 45 degrees, stakes driven back in at 45 degrees. And this is just a great foul weather shelter. Gives you, again, that good coverage, and it served me well. Time tested and proven. Definitely the most traditional design. Alright, so I'd like to show you 2 very simple modifications that you can make to this A-frame to give your shelter just a little more versatility and comfort depending on weather conditions and or season or personal preference. These are a couple of configurations that I've used many times, and I really like the addition of these things. So stick with me and I'll show you how you can use 2 sticks roughly about head high to make your shelter just a little more versatile. Alright, so I've gone ahead and pulled the stakes on the front 2 corners of my tarp here, and I've got this forked stick. What I'm going to do is pull the tie out point of this tarp right up to the fork of this stick, and I just make a figure 8 across the forks. I'll show you a closer view of that in just a moment. Now I can simply pull this guy line out and stake it. If I want to change the angle of the stick, I can change the pitch of the tarp at this point. I'm just going to set it right here, and I can come back and adjust all of that in just a moment. If I want to open it up more, I can do that. If I want to close it more, I can do that. Now I just have to stake this off. Looks good. All right, so you can see I have my tie out point here, and I simply laid that in the fork of the stick. Now I'll take my guy line and simply do a figure 8 over top of that. Now the stick is kind of interlocked to my tarp, and all I have to do is go stake this end out. Looks nice. So you can see what I have going on here. I have basically like a awning off of one side of my shelter. This gives me a lot of coverage for sunshade. It gives me a space to get my gear out of the weather. If there was just a light rain or a passing rain or just a light drizzle, this will do fine shedding water. If it's a hard driving rain, then I'm definitely gonna change the pitch of this to help block that weather out. But when you're camping, especially in hot weather, this is great to open your shelter up, allow that airflow through, which the A-frame definitely does not do. And it just has a nice bushcrafty look to it, which I really like, so that's part of why I enjoy this too. But it gives me a good field of view, again, air circulation, and just a shaded space to work. If you're making like bushcrafty type projects in your camp or something, this gives you a shaded place that you can work on those things. So just an awesome configuration. All right, so just to give you a better look around how this camp comes together, you can see that nice shaded space there. Have all that room up under. And this could also be used to collect rainwater. I can drop one corner of this down and channel it into a container. That's also a nice thing. If rain comes up, we can take advantage of that. And then here on the back side, we just have our standard 45-degree down wall. So just like it was with the A-frame, we didn't do anything different in the back. But here in the front, we just get that nice overhang. Again, I really enjoy this configuration. All right, for this next configuration, I've gone ahead and removed both of those sticks and both the stakes from the front corner of my tarp. And I've moved here to the center point of my tarp. And all I'm gonna do is take a toggle, which was just a stick I picked up off the ground, and whittled a little notch in it. And I'm gonna put that right through the tarp tie out. With that, I'm now going to wedge it in the fork of this stick. And what I have here is a guy line, which has a bowline knot on one end, and I've just run the other end back through the bowline to create a slip. I'm going to bring that over top of all of this, slip it down tight, and that cinches the tarp, the toggle, and this fork stick all together, and now I can simply stake that out in the front. All right, now we stake off the corners. All right, so you can see what I've got going on with this shelter. It's very reminiscent of the last configuration. Just rather than having those corners lifted up and really opening the shelter a lot, we just have the center pole, and then the corners are kind of buttoned down, which is nice because it creates more peaks, which sheds water better. So if I were in a hot weather condition and I had rain, this would be one of my go-to shelters. If it's a really windy day and a driving rain, then I'll go back to an A-frame to make sure I keep myself dry. But if it's just an afternoon rain, passing showers, or a light drizzle, this works great. Again, with these peaks, it sheds the rain nice. So I really like this one. I also like the fact that it's open like this and it creates that airflow, which in a hot weather camp, this is great. So hot weather and rain, this is a go-to for me, as long as it's not like a bad storm. I will sometimes even use this in the wintertime, especially when I have a fire at a distance out front. And if I want to watch that fire, just lay in my hammock and kind of doze off watching the fire, this gives me, it kind of keeps me covered, but at the same time it gives me that field of view. Especially if I'm camping and across the way is maybe a buddy who's camping, this way we can kind of converse at the end of the night and just kind of, you know, we can see each other and communicate better. So it's just really nice for that. And two, if you get nervous sometimes if you're solo camping and you can't see anything, you hear something moving in the middle of the night, this again allows you to shine your light out and kind of see what's going on around you. I still have coverage on the back side with this original A-frame shelter. All of these configurations are modifying only one side of my camp. But anyway, this works really well, and probably, if not my favorite, one of my very favorite configurations. All right, so once again, let's take a look around this setup. And I showed you how this went together with just the toggle through the tie out loop, and then I just used the bowline through the bowline to create that slip. This is all laced together, so it's not going anywhere. Again, we have these corners kind of pinned down, so that'll help create more of those peaks which you see, and those all serve to shed water. I'll give you a look from inside. You can see we have a nice shady space here, and just to show you that field of view, we just have a nice field of view all the way around from one end of the hammock to the opposite end. All right, and this is from the back side, so you can see we just have that original A-frame going on. And really, again, the only change to each of these configurations is here on the front side. All right, so an awesome configuration, definitely one worth knowing. This is a neat little tip that some people may not know. This is just simply the stuff sack from my tarp. Once I set up my tarp, I just quick connect that here on my carabiner to my hammock, and now I have just a easy access little place where I can do a pocket dump. I put my headlamp here sometimes, so when it gets dark at night, I know exactly where my headlamp is, easy access. If I got coins or stuff like that in my pocket, I can just dump it in here. Obviously, if it rains, then I might reposition this, but as long as the weather's fair, or if it's something that I'm not worried about it getting wet, this is a neat little place that you can store those things and just have them quick at hand. Another valuable tip is once you've got your hammock and tarp all in position, it's good to roll up any extra cordage so that people don't trip over it. And also with things like this Dyneema or with this mule tape, it gets snagged and it can fray out, messed up by things on the forest floor. So it's good to go ahead and roll those things up and get them out of your way. Something else that works good for me, since I have this toggle here that my whoopie sling's attached to, what I'll do is just use that somewhat like a cleat to figure 8 all this extra mule tape up. And if anything, that just makes my connection of my whoopie sling more secure. Just kind of wrapping over, doing a figure 8 here. And now once I get to the end of that, I just simply half hitch it off. And that'll hold everything nice and secure and keep my mule tape up off the ground. However, when it's time to go, this is very quick to undo, just like that. Now I'm ready to pack. So it's still quick disconnect. Alright, so there you have my 3 favorite tarp configurations to use when I'll be hammock camping in the field. And honestly, if I want a good night's sleep and I really want to be comfortable in the woods, I'm going to take my hammock and my tarp every time. I've found that in all 4 seasons of the year, whether it's cold or hot, I can find a configuration that works well to keep myself comfortable in all conditions. Rain, shine, hot, cold, hammock and tarp work well for me every time. I still enjoy traditional tarp camping with a nice long fire out front, and I enjoy tents on occasion, but 99% of the time, tarp and hammock are what I'm going to choose. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in to this video. I hope you've enjoyed this information. If you didn't know this or haven't seen these things before, there's nothing new or rocket science about it, but I just wanted to share my ideas and what's worked well for me over time. Thank you again. I appreciate you guys. Please feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear about your favorite hammock and tarp setup. If you use this or your likes, dislikes of what I've put up here, feel free to comment. I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Until that next video, take care and God bless. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar content, please subscribe to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. Thank you for your time and interest, and I hope you'll come back soon. Take care.